This is the Live Sovereign Podcast, episode 14. Are you dealing with a persistent problem in your life that you just can't seem to get the better of? No matter how much you pray, Bible study about it, try your hardest, do your best, it always comes back and you fall back into it. It's probably because you're not using the right tools.
Pray it out, study it out, and then force it out.
Mm-hmm. Those techniques work really well for certain things. But if there's a problem that no amount of doing those things seems to touch, that's where we've got to talk about something different.
Right. You cannot willpower something to death. That's warring in the flesh. There is a way to fight, and there is a way to use your will. It seems contradictory, but you need to use your will in a surrendered way. Prayer clearly does work. A lot of people have seen results in their own life. They've seen miracles. So why on this one sticky issue is it not budging? If you do a counseling session, you don't do it for 5 minutes. It's like an hour or 2 hours every week. And sometimes it takes weeks, but you do uproot the problem. So a lot of the time it's because we're not praying enough. We think it's enough. Like, oh, I prayed for an hour. Okay, good job. But some problems require 20 hours. When I overcame social anxiety, I did months and months of intensive inner work with a trained guide to help me. And it took a long time. And we chipped away at it hour by hour by hour each week. And I did things between. Some issues are very sticky and they just take a long time. And sometimes we experience the miracle cure, but not always. Mm-hmm. And that's where we give up or we think it shouldn't take as long. So I think a lot of it is a sheer number of hours put in. Right,
that's true. Yeah, putting in the time to whatever the methods or the techniques or the solutions that you're doing, where if something's a really big life-encompassing situation, it's not going to be a 20-minute fix.
If you don't get answers immediately when you're praying, it doesn't mean it's not working. If you understood energetically how you were chipping away at the problem, you would actually see, okay, there's 90% left. There's 80% left. There's 60, there's 30, there's 5% left. But because we can't see that, sometimes we think it's not working when it is. It's just a sheer amount of how long are you going to keep working? And a lot of the time, 95% goes really fast, and it's that last 5%. This is actually a life principle. The 95% takes 5% of the time. The last 5% is where everybody gives up, and that takes 95% of the time, effort. It's like building a house. You're an architect. Explain what happens when you build a house.
Well, that's exactly what you get the foundation in the ground. You put the framing. The house just
looks like it just appears.
The shape of the house appears in 3 days, but then it takes 6 weeks.
Now we got to paint. Now we got to pick door handles.
For drywall, for paint, for plumbing fixtures, for all of the it's the last 2 things.
Yes, the last little 5% is what takes the longest. And if you give up then, you give up and you don't ever get the house. There's another principle called the dip, and it's by Seth Godin. And he says, anything in your life, you might start okay, and then you have this big dip. If you don't realize the dip is part of the actual plan of success, you stop. And that's where almost everybody gets weeded out. And that's why everybody doesn't fix their biggest issue. If you realize the dip is coming, oh, nothing's working now. Oh, it's really bad now. Nothing's working. If you know that's part of the plan, then you persevere through it and you pray through it and you do all the things through it and you can will through that. That's where you use your willpower, not to force, but to endure. Once you get through that dip, you get a spike in growth. And that's when you overcome the problem that you've been struggling with. When I've coached people through things or done guided prayer sessions with people, you can feel things lifting and moving, but if you don't know what's happening, you won't think anything's changing. You might get a yawn. People don't realize, okay, something just left. You just went down 98% left. Mm-hmm. And if being trained in some of the coaching and the psychology aspect of how do you actually get real change in people's life and seeing it in real time, I can tell, okay, whoa, just a big chunk just got taken off. Mm-hmm. Oh, there's another one. If you don't realize, if you get angry and you all of a sudden feel a little relief, that's probably because you worked through a chunk. It'd be nice if life had a loading bar. Oh, you're this far along with working through this issue.
You're talking about a psychological progress bar. Yep. And You can't. It's almost like trying to lick your own elbow. Nobody can see their own progress bar. If you're working with somebody, it's so much easier from an objective, the other side of the couch, to see, oh, this person is making progress, but nobody can see their own progress bar most of the time.
Right. So we just have to know that, that's where the knowledge comes into play.
Trust the process.
Trust the process. Know that prayer is chipping things away. Mm-hmm. And if you just keep at it, especially when it feels like you're not breaking through, you're right on the cusp of something. And if you know, even just that 95%, 5% rule, you will realize, oh, that's why I'm having such a hard time getting rid of this, because I'm almost there. And that's when most people give up. I don't think you can study a problem out. So here's the problem when we Bible study our problems away. We open it up and we don't realize that our brain is literally filtering out certain passages that don't fit inside our mental paradigm of how we understand. The scriptures we need the most, a lot of the time, are blocked from our understanding. You ever read something 5 times and you're like, I don't get it. Hang on, I missed it again. Oh, hang on, I missed it again. You just keep skipping.
Or even just okay, that doesn't really seem relevant to me.
Right. So if you're reading and God led you somewhere, but it's not jumping off the page at you, when you're broken and you're ready for something, it will pop off the page at you when you're studying. But if you want to learn something and it's in here, you need to combine it with some prayer of, God, open my eyes so I can see, because you literally have blind spots that are blocking certain principles from making sense to you.
Yeah, and Bible study is absolutely critical, but it is not the Swiss Army knife of solutions to everything. Oh, well, I'm going to read my Bible until I don't struggle with whatever it is anymore.
What about willpower? So obviously the will is a huge thing God gave us, but we can use it the right way or the wrong way. Mm-hmm. When it doesn't work for people, what do you think is happening?
Just using your willpower to fix a problem will only work for as long as you have the willpower.
There's a principle in psychology of what you resist persists. And if you're fighting something on the physical level and you're resisting it, you're actually going to make it resist you back. If you're fighting your porn addiction on the physical level, you're going to keep on fighting and it's going to keep on coming back at you until you realize, I can't beat this. So what you resist persists if you're fighting with your carnal mind.
Willpower is the nature of resisting something, because as soon as you back off on the willpower, the problem is just as much still there as it was at the beginning.
Right. It's like two magnets that have the South Pole facing. They're always going to be pushing against each other.
You can move one magnet with the other, but as soon as you take away the willpower magnet, the other magnet's still there doing its thing.
Yeah.
Unless
so you have to realize
there
is something you cannot see that is making that happen, that is resisting it. If you can realize there's something that you can't see that's causing the problem in your life, then you can switch into resisting in the spirit. That is why we fight in the spirit. And that just means you surrender trying to force something. You surrender and say, I can't do this on my own. And now I'm going to fight the invisible stuff. What is going on internally and in my energy, in my attitudes? That is what you fight.
That brings us exactly to the point where, okay, if prayer isn't doing the job, if Bible study doesn't seem to be touching it, if willpower is just a temporary fix,
what do you do?
There's something under the surface, below the level that those solutions are touching, that needs to be addressed in a different way. If you're seeing fruit that you don't want, realize
no amount of snipping off the leaves and the pieces of fruit is going to help. You have to uproot the entire plant.
Getting rid of the fruit is not the permanent problem.
Yes, you have to pull it up by the roots. So the biggest thing is to know there's something deeper that's going on that's causing the symptoms. There's a root cause to your problem.
If you see fruit you don't like, realize you need to deal with the root of where that fruit's coming from. It's a symptom of some deeper root cause. It's something that you just identify with as, oh, well, that's just how life is.
You're in a paradigm. You're in a fishbowl.
Right.
And you don't realize there's more out there.
The deeper root is usually the water you're swimming in. It's something that you can't conceive of being a changeable condition.
Everybody else can see something about you, but you can't because you're blinded to it.
It's either just the way the world works. It's either, oh, that's just how I am, or it's literally who I am.
And it can be a completely non-related seeming thing.
There can be a lot of distance between the root of something and where a fruit pops up.
If your business isn't growing, for an example, the business not growing is the fruit. If you go down deep enough, there actually might be a root. You actually aren't loving your spouse. It can be in a completely different area of your life,
It
or
seems
relationships,
unrelated.
but they're all connected. Everything in our life is connected. And so if you fix what's going on between you and your wife, it will fix your business problems. Oh man, I'm speaking to you right now, aren't I? If you fix your marriage problem and you realize, and you get that, your own house in order, your business will take off. There's usually something that everybody else can see about you, but you can't, and you don't see why it's a problem, that actually is going to fix your biggest problem in your life that seems unrelated.
When you solve one root deep underlying issue, it will have ripple effects into areas of your life that you'd never have expected.
And this is what Jesus is really talking about denying yourself. You have to die to yourself daily and put on Christ. That seems very metaphorical, but this root system is usually a false identity. And when you feel like something's getting bad enough that you feel like you're dying, I feel like I'm about to die, or this is so bad, I don't know how I'm going to live through this. It's because you literally are about to die to yourself. If you just keep on going, it's going to feel like a death. It is a form of death. It's the death of the old self, which is also called the ego.
Yeah, ego death is
it feels like a death.
Psychological term for when a part of what feels like you, or the carnal,
illusion of you,
the carnal you that you're attempting to grow out of, literally feels like it's being cut off of you.
And if you understand the psychology side of this, you realize that's what's happening, and that's what Jesus is talking about. So you don't get as freaked out. It still feels scary. If I have an ego death, even though I know all this, I can recognize the signs, and that's where it helps. I'm like, oh, wow, I'm feeling like I am dying. I feel like this is never going to, I don't know what to do. And I feel like I'm going crazy. Thankfully, somewhere in the back of my mind, when something like that is happening, I know, okay, this means my ego is dying, and there's going to be a rebirth into something like the new version of me. And that's where this is all going to come down to, is your identity in Christ versus your old identity. The old identity has to die.
Right. And I've been through this repeatedly, especially just over the last couple of years, is going through something that forces you to confront things in yourself that you can't hold on to anymore, and realizing like it literally feels like you're dying. And
the things that you want in your life most that you can't have is because there is some part of your old self, your ego, that needs to die in order to be able. Yeah, you cannot have the thing you want and also have whatever part of ego. I mean, you just had a year plus of like the worst low period in your life. It was, they call it the dark night of the soul, but that's in the Bible all over the place. When David was hiding in caves from Saul, like that's a dark night of a soul period. When Elijah was like, I just want to die right after his biggest success, that's a dark night of the soul. That is a huge ego death, and there's always something really good on the other side. If you don't know what you're going through, you're going to feel very lost when you're in that valley, in that tunnel.
The whole idea here is that it's parts of let's say you 1.0, the carnal version of you that
who
are
you
getting
think you are.
Right, who you think you are, or who you used to be, that are getting removed and literally cut off from who you actually are, who God created you to be. And it can be a painful, uncomfortable, traumatic feeling process.
It almost always has something related to, some kind of pain. He's trying to prune that off.
And depending on how hard you hold on to it, or have held on to it,
pain
can make the process more or less unpleasant.
Yeah, exactly. The more, and that's where surrender comes in. The more you can surrender to and the more broken you feel, the more you can surrender to God's power taking over and resolving this for you.
Right. It's almost like spiritual surgery, where if you're undergoing surgery, if you are physically fighting back against being
that's why they sedate you.
Undergoing surgery, it's going to be really hard and really long and really scary and really painful, where if you just lay back and trust the process and figure you're going to wake up whenever your appendix is out, it goes way more smoothly.
It's like when I'm trying to brush Jamie's hair, our 3-year-old, I'll be like, if you just hold still, it wouldn't hurt as much. And when she's flailing all over, it makes it so much harder and longer and more painful than it needs to be.
Right, exactly. If we surrender to the process, it's way faster and smoother than if we're fighting every step of the way. So for example, if it seems like, well, I'm struggling with angry outbursts, you pray about it, you study about having peace and patience and all those things, but you just keep on, somebody cuts you off in traffic and, oh, look, the kids learned a new word. Ask me how I know. But realizing, oh, well, that's just something you have to deal with. That's the water you're swimming in.
There's a deeper identity issue at play where part of you is not identified with your true nature in Christ.
Exactly.
You might not think you deserve love. And because of that deep thing that you don't know of, you have angry outbursts because you won't let people get close enough to actually love you.
Right there. Yeah. There's some root underneath the, oh, well, this is just how I am.
And the good thing is you don't have to know what it is. You don't have to go on this endless belief hunting search to find what's my root identity? What are the limiting beliefs? You can do that, but in general, it's a lot more effective if you just choose to identify with Christ. We end up accidentally creating the things we're trying to avoid. And if you have a deep root system and you aren't aware of it, then it just keeps running your life and you do things that cause people to act in a way that confirms your belief that they don't care about you, because it's like the person that rejects people before they have a chance to reject them. So they call off the relationship just when it's going really good because they have this deep rooted belief that people reject me. Or you can push people's buttons so bad that they end up rejecting you.
Right. Or you inadvertently form relationships with people who will treat you that way.
Right.
To
that was another one.
That's how the world works.
What about this next one?
Yeah. The next one is, I just can't seem to break this habit, whether it's porn or smoking, alcohol, or just any kind of a habit that, like, oh, it's a behavior that I indulge and I just can't seem to get out of it.
That's a symptom. I can't break this. But why can't you break it? You got to get down to the root.
Right. What's the core identity of why do I keep doing this?
Right. And we don't need to know what it is. We just need to put on the new identity. One
of the keys of awareness in going through this process is realizing that if there's fruit in your life you don't like, stop trying to pluck off the fruit and throw it into your neighbor's yard, and realize the fruit tells you there's a root issue you need to deal with.
If you don't like the fruits, you gotta dig up the roots. Oh, do you like my rhyme?
There's your sound bite.
Whatever you're dealing with gets really bad right before you're about to move into your next big assignment or the next level. So recognize that could be what's going on. When you try to get rid of it, you're going to reinforce it. What you need to do is focus on the result you actually want, the outcome you want. You want to be more like Christ. You want to be the person. Let's just use the porn example, right? So you're struggling with the porn addiction. The more you try to fight it over here, you're just going to reinforce it. You need to realize that's there, but focus over here. I want to be a person that loves my wife with all of my heart. How about something like that? Whatever that thing is for you, that's what you pick. It's all about where you're anchoring from. We don't try to fix the old self. The old self can't be fixed. That's like anchoring a rubber band over here and pulling it. And you're like, I'm fixing it. Snap. And as soon as you let go, snap, you're right back. And that's why we keep on doing the same things over and over.
The key is to disconnect from being that person.
Yes. And to do that, you need to just anchor to the identity you want. Okay. So if I do it over here, this is what I want to be. I want to be somebody who's in love with my spouse and doesn't think about anybody else. You just want to frame it in whatever the positive thing is. And it's always something that's an identity in Christ that you want to be. Anchor over here. My mic's in the way. You pull the rubber band from here, the more tension you feel, the more it's going to slingshot you this way. So it's all about where you're anchoring from. And that's why you don't need to know what the issues are under the surface.
To leave them behind.
Yeah, to leave them behind. Ooh, that's good. You don't need to know what the issues are under the surface to leave them behind. They will resolve as you go this way.
The more you focus on the positive, on being more like Christ, on what you do want to be like, the less and less relevant all that other stuff is going to be to you.
You anchor to the identity you want. And you do take it to God. You do pray about it. And you say, God, this is the big thing in my life. I want to resolve this now. I don't want to wait. I don't want to wait 20 years until my marriage is destroyed. I want to do it now. Take that to him. Tell him. Make it really clear. You can pray about it a ton. But you need to do the inner work. And the inner work is all about letting go of this stuff as you're focusing over here. You need to embody this version of yourself. You can recognize this. It's okay to like see this stuff. You're going to see it as it's letting go. You know, if you have a glass of water that has like dirt in the bottom or sand and you stir it up, well, it's going to rise to the surface because you stirred it up. So if a lot of the negativity is coming out as you're focusing on this, that's what's happening. That's the process. That's the stuff God's pulling out of you. It's all about embodying this as you let go of this. Well, how do you do that? There's a lot of ways you can do it. The way that is the easiest, if you aren't experienced in this, in doing inner work, is a meditation. You can pray all the different things like, God, help me let go of this. Help me let go of not feeling deserving of love. Help me feel your love. And that does things. It does. Mm-hmm. And you also can be like, God, I claim your truth. I claim your promises. You want these good things for my life. That works. We have a way that makes it even extra simplified by assuming the new identity and meditating and embodying that, because you can be that now in spirit.
The whole process is like climbing a mountain, and you can climb the mountain any way you want. Praying about it, addressing it in whatever ways.
Jesus could take it away immediately.
You can climb the mountain however you want to get to the top, but a pre-recorded meditation that leads to the top of the mountain is like finding a trail. People have already laid out the easiest way to get up there, and all you have to do is follow the trail. It's
100% biblical, because it's all about putting off your old self and putting on the new. It's just a structured, guided way to do that. You could do it without it. I don't listen to it sometimes because I know the process, and it's life-changing when you do it consistently.
Using the meditation that we have put together as a guided resource leading you through the process is a really easy way to do it without having to know the process and do it all kind of freehand.
Anybody that's been in this walk for any amount of time has seen instant miracles and maybe experienced them themselves, instant healings. But they've also seen things that just drag on for years. Why aren't you answering me, God? This is an answer to that. A lot of time people are like, well, you should just, Jesus should be healing you all the time. Well, he is, but sometimes you get instantaneous because you're ready for it. Or other times it's just step, a long journey. And this is just a tool you can use. If you want to listen to the meditation, go ahead and click on the video that's coming up. And if you want more information about, is meditation safe and what exactly is this compared to New Age practices, go ahead and click on that video. They're coming up in just a sec. Thanks for watching.
See you next time.
How would a life fully surrendered to him look? What would it feel like? Feel it. What would it be like if you already had it?